Hey everybody, I'm Dave, Tech Experts. My question today is backups worth doing and do you still need them? Well, if you don't know what backup is, basically I'm talking about making an extra copy of your data that's critical to you in case something happens that you'd have a way to recover it. And my question is, are they really worth it anymore? Do we have enough auto solutions going that you don't need to do a backup? Or what kind of backups are there? And do people really do them anymore? Or is it all just high end, big business things and it doesn't really matter? That is the question and the topic of the day. We have a multiple versions of solutions that you can use to do backups now. I want to know, what are you guys doing? Are you using it? Do you just consider your file sharing system a backup? And do you think that's okay to have a file sharing system like a Dropbox be considered your backup as opposed to having a full on backup solution like iDrive? I use iDrive for my backup solution. Or do you just say, it's okay, I have the files on my PC and nothing will ever happen to it. I'm good. Or I use the some auto system from like Microsoft OneDrive, and that's more or less good enough for me. And what are the chances of something really happening? And what are the chances of me losing everything if I'm not putting a full blown backup solution in place? And what does that all mean when you hear the 3, 2, 1 versions? And why do I really care about any of that? That's what I want to talk to you about today. I'm excited to do this. I'm coming here live from my home office. So if it looks a little messy behind me, that's what it is. I got a bunch of production going at the moment. So if you see a little tripod or whatever, I'm filming some new system builds we're doing right now. So be on the lookout for those coming up in the near future. Anyway, that all just prompted me lately to think about backups, how critical they were as we were doing a system build. I was rebuilding a new machine and I had some parts fail in it unexpectedly that were brand new. And it made me really think about, oh, what would happen if something failed? Do we really have a backup in place? And I do, but I thought, like, do people really care about this anymore? Or if you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, do you just kind of run thinking it's all gonna be okay and it's fine? I'm asking this because it's it's a topic that I think people don't really take seriously, and it's more critical than I think people realize. And I want to make sure that everyone understands the importance of putting a backup in place. I had a friend and a buddy I worked with, and he had one PC he was mostly using all the time for everything. And it was, he was like, it's a jet engine, it's got everything, it's super built out. And it was about 5 years old at this point when he was telling me he was having issues with it. And he kept saying, it's trying to update my Windows and it can never make the update successfully. And it keeps giving me some weird error, space error issues that I don't understand. And I said, have you backed up your data? Have you transferred anything off the drive? He's like, oh no, I got this machine. It was built. It was super huge. It was great. I had the top line, everything. Well, maybe that was when he had it built 5 years ago, right? But technology and times have changed. Drives have gotten bigger. Our amount of space we use for our data has gotten bigger as well. So keep that in mind. Just because you seem like you thought you had a ton of space on your machine back in the day when you had it first built, the more things we're doing, the more space they use. What do I mean by that? Well, when you're doing like videos, even if you're doing social media on your phone and you record the video on your phone, most phones right now are capable of recording a full 4K video, which is super cool and awesome. And I'm really glad because we get amazing detail out of it. Even if you're not going to use the full 4K video when you go to post it, you can still record the original file in 4K. So keep that in mind, right? the 4K file will be much larger than like that 1080p that we were used to, or 720p that we were probably doing back in the day when we were recording 5 years ago on a lower end webcam. So now we have a better webcams, we have better phones, we have better everything. So the files have gotten bigger. The files for our gamings have gotten bigger. The files for whatever you're doing are probably bigger than they used to be 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, what seemed like it was plenty of storage or longer may not be the same today. That's why we're seeing the price of storage come down and the size of storage generally going up in what you're getting. And sometimes you won't see the size of storage go up hugely because they're going to think, well, you're going to use their cloud service as your place to store everything. That's great, but that's not necessarily a full-blown backup solution. That's you just putting whatever there that you have on a cloud service. That is great. I'm glad you're using that, but I wouldn't consider that consistent as far as a backup goes. So that's why I'm saying, are people actually even doing them anymore? And is it really worth it? Well, back to the story of my friend and his machine. Like I said, he used the machine for all his work business stuff as well as all his personal stuff, which is fine, blending in the two together. But he never did a backup. He never bothered to get an external hard drive. So get an external hard drive, just back it up. They're cheap. You can get a big one. They're the smaller spinning ones back in the day. You can get one that's not too expensive and fairly big, and just transfer stuff on so you have it in case something ever happens. And in case something happened and you had to leave, it'd be easier to take the external hard drive than trying to pull out this big monster machine and chuck it in the back of your car to drive off with. Now, that's always a great idea in case of a hurricane or a storm. I live in Florida. We live in Florida, so storms are a real thing for us. The point being, he never did it. He never did any of it. He thought, I had it built. It was a Rockstar machine when I had it built. It'll always be good. Well, progress forward and you can't do your Windows updates successfully because it says it's running out of space. That's kind of a major problem you're having. That should be a red flag that you should stop at that point and put some sort of backup in place, or go through and clean up all your files and get rid of all the stuff that you don't need, aren't using, or isn't valid or relevant anymore. So when I said we need to put a backup in place, he's like, I don't want one. Just give me more space. So to get more space, we realized he had literally filled the drive to the point where it was barely running successfully, because it was literally every time the Windows updates would download, it would take a portion of the drive that had left. Everything it had was being put into cache or extra memory because he didn't have memory to hold everything to run it, but he didn't have enough memory to store it all. So the auto downloads would fail. He would never delete the old failed auto download, so it would try again and create a new download and take up more space because it couldn't complete it to unpack itself and get rid of the old ones. So, and over time, he basically filled the drive to beyond capacity, to the point where Windows was having a problem booting because it didn't have enough free space to basically cache out or hold files in storage that were beyond your memory, that it just wanted to open up and store while it was doing and unpacking. Basically, it's like having a folder, taking everything out of the folder, sorting it, organizing it, put it in the right place, and then you can put the folder away. Well, it didn't have enough room to do that. It was using the extra hard drive just to try to do that. So every time it would get part of the way through the process, the papers would get left all over the table. It would crash. It didn't know how to pick them back up or where they were going because it didn't know where it was in the process. So it would just start the process over again and do the same thing, and we'll leave a mess and a mess and a mess until the point where it's like, I don't even have enough room to unpack stuff to reorganize it so I can get it unmessy. And basically his whole system crashed because he had loaded up with enough data and stuff that he hadn't taken care of, kept it clean and organized, and had no backup in place. So his system crashed. We went to put a new drive in, thinking we can just put a new drive in before it was fully unfunctional and it would be okay. Well, we realized he couldn't put in a big enough drive because the machine was old enough that it didn't have the capacity to recognize and let you put in a large drive. So it meant when you put in a large drive, you had to split it up into smaller drives. That is a way to accommodate that solution. You basically create more than one drive out of your large drive. So rather than being 6 terabytes, it's 3 drives. They're each 2 terabytes. And you can just do the same thing. You can share the data across each of the drives and keep it organized or backed up that way. But before we could get to successfully even recognize the new drive and configure it to be able to transfer the files, the whole thing crashed because it didn't have enough space to be able to hold what it was trying to do and build a new drive for us at the same time. Needless to say, it was a hot mess for him to try to recover all of his files. And he had business files, taxes, and everything critical to his life all in one machine. He almost lost everything he had for years and years and years of work because he had never bothered to put any sort of backup solution or backup in place. The game was all going to be okay. I didn't want to use the cloud because I didn't trust the cloud, was his theory, that I don't know who might have my data there. I said, well, if you have a backup solution that's encrypted, it's like putting it in a private vault or safety deposit box in a bank. The bank is the cloud service, and they don't know what's in your safety deposit box. They're just holding the box for you. He was okay with that after we went through a major process to get everything recovered. And now we've gotten to the point where he has a real cloud backup and he has external hard drive as a backup of some of the files he really wanted to keep that were important. And I'm glad that he did that. And I had another client that we were working with that had a machine that had an issue that was known. It was basically a corporate set of machines. The machines were known to have this particular model and run from the company had a reported issue from their corporate saying these machines have to have their drives replaced because part of the drive from this one is defective and at some point it will just die unexpectedly, stop booting, not be able to recover data, and everything can be lost if you don't get on the schedule to have your drive replaced. So I was working basically with a project where we were replacing drives throughout the group. And one of the team members was busy working on a major multi-million-dollar contract and projects and basically said, we don't have time to do that now. When I complete my proposal and project and everything, I will look at having it done if I have time. And I stressed the importance of we don't know how much time you're promised. Yes, nobody's has failed drastically yet. And people are running theirs and they've run for a long time and not have a problem, but it doesn't guarantee that it will run inevitably and not fail. Well, just days before she was able to finish and complete, turn in her $1 million proposal for her project that she was moving to with a client, her drive died. Yeah, it died real hard. Like everything on it was gone and not really recoverable unless we want to send it out to an outside service, which would cost a lot of money and take a lot of time and hope they could recover it. It was worse because it was a known issue with that drive, so it didn't mean it was a normal, easy, like the pin got bent or something happened. That was a known normal thing that would, it bounced or you dropped it and it damaged it that way. It was a manufacturing defect that was known and basically saying, hey, we're going to honor it and replace the drives. So here's new drives for you. Just replace it, copy the data over, and replace the drive. And you'll be good. Send the flawed drives back. So as a result, she lost her $1 million proposal. She lost all the other work she had with them. The client had to be told, I can't provide you your new proposal because you currently aren't basically able to provide what you're currently prepared to present. And because of that, we don't want to continue to do business with someone who's not going to take care of their equipment or be aware, have put something in place to make sure in case something happens that you are prepared to move forward. So she lost the client, she lost the proposal, and she lost money she normally make from other clients because she was unable to meet future deadlines while she tried to recover all the rest of her data, saying, I never thought it would happen to me. I always thought I had more time. I thought I was okay. It would be okay if I just all I needed was another few days or another week or two, and I would get to it. Eventually I would get to it. Well, eventually never came, and the system caught up with her, and the loss was greater than she could handle. Um, she said it caused her more loss than she expected because she's like, I lost time, I lost money, I lost a client, I lost my reputation, and I do all this work to recover on top of having to try to recover the data I lost in my drive. Because I simply wouldn't take time to put a simple backup in place. And if she would have put the backup in place, we just would have run the backup, put the new drive in, recovered all the data onto the new drive, and she would have been good to keep going and keep working, even if the drive had failed like that, which we expected it was going to. And then other people's worked for months more without any problem before we got theirs replaced. So the idea, like, why is mine now and not later? I don't know. I just know the reality is at some point in time, every drive or system will sort of crash, fail, or have a catastrophe that hits. And if you don't have something put in place, then you're going to be caught scrambling, running, trying to recover, trying to do the things, and spending more money. And whoever's watching, I welcome you in. Thank you for joining me. If you were just on, thank you. Big thumbs up on the Facebook. Love you guys. I'm glad you're here. I just want to encourage everyone to make a plan, put a backup in place, and kind of get your head wrapped around like what a full backup series or set is like. I mentioned that 3-2-1 you may hear tossed around. It's kind of like having 3 copies of your data, 2 copies on 2 different devices, and 1 copy being off-site is the 3-2-1 in the most basic version of how it's broken down. So basically think like you have your original copy, then you should have 2 different versions of a backup. One of those backups should be on an off-site solution, and I'll go over that in another video. But I just want to know, like, is anybody still doing backups? Is this something you really think about? Or are you just trusting whatever you have to whatever auto cloud system you may have gotten free with your Windows account or your Google Drive or whatever, that's good enough? Or that you're said, well, I'm using Dropbox and we're sharing data, and that'll be just like having a backup. And even when you're doing a file sharing system, I don't think that's the same as having a backup. So I want to encourage you to consider having a true backup solution put in place beyond your file sharing. Think of it like the file sharing could be something like a Dropbox, like I said, or like maybe you're using one of the other collaboration tools out there that you can use, Google Drive or something like that, right? And you're collaborating and sharing. That's better than nothing. Let me start there. That's better. I'm glad you're doing that much, but I don't consider that a true full backup. I think having a true full backup in place is critical for all of your data. Now, before you get into your true full backup, I want you to do some pre-homework, and I want you to go ahead and do the work to clean up your data. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's time to put some good file management in place. And if you need help with that, you can click the link down below to schedule a tech chat with me, and we can talk about backups, file structures, and what you should look at and what your options might be, and help you find a plan for that. But doing a good file management ahead of time is going to be critical, because it'll make your whole backup solution in whatever form you do better, smoother, and less expensive. The reason why I say less expensive is backups are generally based upon how much data you're using, how how much space are you going to require for your backup? Be it a local drive you're buying, a NAS solution, which is a set of network drives you're using, or a cloud solution, or a combination of all of those. How much space are you going to need? The more space you need, then basically the more money you're going to be investing. More money for a bigger cloud solution, more money for a bigger local drive, or more money for more bigger NAS drives. Now, there's nothing wrong with having your files backed up in more than one place. I'd rather see the duplicates be there than the duplicates be in your files, and because it's a lousy or poorly, I should say, a poorly maintained file management system. Basically means you have a file here, you need it someplace else, you just copy it over and don't worry about the original. You make an edit, you resave the edit, and you have a third copy basically floating around from a master and edit and the original copy that you downloaded. And then you go, I want to use it all the time, so I'm going to toss it on my desktop, fill up my desktop with all the icons so I don't have to look around for it. And now you've run into bad file management, because not only does it take you longer to find everything, it also means you have more than one copy floating around. And if you're trying to recover your data ever, how are you really sure which copy is which? So part of that file management is using good file naming. So like one copy would be the original, then one copy would be edited copy, and then one copy would be, that's it. You shouldn't have another copy. You should have the original and the added, and then if you publish it someplace, that's okay, but you don't really need a third copy floating around or on your machine. So cleaning up your files, making sure you're organized, getting rid of stuff you don't need, don't use anymore, getting rid of old copies that aren't relevant anymore because you've updated your policies and you don't need the old policy copies, or just even separating out your files so that they're really well organized to say, these are business files and these are just company private business files just for us. These are files that I'm going to use and share with my coworkers, and these are public facing files, like things I can post on the internet and not have to worry or be exposing company secrets, right? Because that company data that you have is critical. It is one of your key, your probably most valuable asset is your data. So that's why I always am trying to get you to secure your data. So don't be doing things like having, not being using VPN when you're out traveling, be using a password manager, using two-factor authentication. That's why I say putting good file management in place helps secure your data, because basically you can then take data that doesn't need to be shared with anybody and put it in one place or on one backup solution and store that away, and not have to put that in the sharing system and say, everything is in my Dropbox. It doesn't matter. Hopefully nobody accidentally gets access to a folder they're not supposed to. So by compartmentalizing, organizing, and keeping things in order, you can do things like smart sharing, you can do things like smart backups, and you can do things like saving yourself space and time, because you want to look so far and so hard to recover your data or to find what you're looking for. Now, when you're doing the backup part of that, think about your time is, how long is it going to take to back up all those files? If you have big, large duplicates, it's going to take a longer time for you, so it's going to use more of your resources in whatever way it's doing, and tie up those resources while it's doing the backup. Now, a lot of times we run the backups overnight, so it doesn't feel like it's a big deal. But if it takes longer because of that, or your machine is running and doing more work for a longer period of time and running heavier, it can't do something else for you, or it's costing you because you're running your machine when it could be resting, staying cool, or being powered down and not having to waste electricity like that. So keep those things in mind when you can do a smart way of like getting everything organized in a smart, clean, and efficient way. It saves time, because then the backup can be done one time or one sets of times, like one time to each solution you're using. And then when you go to do a backup moving forward, if you're doing an incremental, which is basically like you're backing up what has changed since the last time, then you aren't having to run as hard. You can just say, only these files are new files I added or updated, only back these up and back up these changes for me. it makes your life easier, better, and go smoother. And then when you need to recover on the other side, you don't have to take so long to recover because everything will be organized. And if you're trying to recover and you are like, I need these files right now, you'll know which folders to go and start the download or the restoration process with, so you can get the most critical files back first, and then the files that aren't as critical to have back right away, you can put those later in the list of recovery in the process, so you're not wasting time waiting for everything to come in when you needed just one or two major key folders or files to get yourself working and going again. And when you're in that recovery mode, you're probably already stressed. So more time being spent on things that aren't critical causes more stress in your life. And we want to reduce the stress, reduce the anxiety, and keep you more secure. So that's why I just want to pop on and talk about, are backups still valid? I would say yes. Is having a real backup solution in place still valid? I would say most definitely. And I don't think it matters what size business you have. And if you're a smaller business, I'd almost say it's more critical than with the big businesses. The big businesses have a tendency to have put this in place or have things spread across enough different departments that if one area is lost, it's not entire company loss. Where if you're a small entrepreneur, a solopreneur, or a small business owner, having real backups in place is going to be critical because you're wearing so many hats, and that all that data you have is your life. And we don't want to see you losing any portion of that or being stressed over something happening to it. Hard purple piece. Yes, baby. Thank you, Alicia, for joining us today. I am excited to see you. And yeah, I am just sharing why I think backups are so critical right now and how I think people overlook them. And I think it's really one of those things that I really wish people wouldn't overlook. I want to have everyone have a little more peace and joy in their day. And I appreciate someone popping in and saying hi as I'm doing this. So keep in mind, there's all kinds of choices for you. There's cloud backups, there are local backups, there are network backups, and there are backups you can put into a rotational system where you could have more than one, put offsite, not be cloud, and still consider it safe. If you want to learn more about all of that, please check out my other videos. I have a video coming up on cloud versus local and which one we really need. I would say both, and what your options are. And I know it can be overwhelming, especially if you're when you're that small business owner and you feel like, I don't know how to do this, as I am the only one doing all the things, and I can't really feel like I can afford everything all at once. So if you need help with that, please click the link I put down below in the description. You can schedule a tech call with me or a coffee chat with me, and we can go over and talk about like, where you're at, what's your budget like, what are your plans, how much, what are we looking at for options for you that you can consider for doing a backup. We can look at how we could increment them over time and in phases, where if you can't afford to do everything at once, what solutions do you already have or are you already paying for that we can use, and how can we maximize those solutions to help protect your data and information, and how can we look to build out a plan to help you move forward in the best possible way. I am Dave of Tech Experts. I'm excited and happy to share this day of, is backups still worth it today in 2023, as we see all the other things of the cloud and everything else rising up, and whether or not we think it's still valid. I'm just glad people are joining me. I thank you, Alicia, for popping in. I thank you for everyone from Facebook that jumped on. And I look forward, if you find this video helpful, please share it with your friends and your family. Share it with the coworkers. Share it with somebody you know that maybe has a small business that maybe hasn't considered why it's really important or critical that they do a backup still. And thinking, I don't have time for it. I can do it later. I don't trust the cloud. It'll be okay. I have a super machine. It'll never die. I'll never run out of space. It's fast enough. It'll never happen to me. The storm will never hit my house. The power company can't possibly do anything to damage me. I'm not in a storm city. I'm not in a city that's threatened by any major disasters. As we've seen throughout the country and throughout the world lately, you don't know where you are or what could possibly hit or how it's going to hit. And even if everything is perfectly safe, there's still viruses, ransomwares, hackers, and people doing malicious things and looking to make a quick buck out there that will try to exploit you in a negative way. I don't want to exploit anyone. I want to keep everybody safe, have everyone be successful, and just share the goodness of why it's worth doing these things. Now, I hope you found this helpful. Like I said, if you did, give me the big thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for me. Make sure you leave me a comment in the comments section down below. What is your current backup solution? I'm wondering what it is. And if you have none, that's okay too. Leave that in the comments. And if you got something helpful out of it, just leave me a thanks. Till next time, I'm David Tech Experts. Keep yourself safe. Make sure you are following me for all new content all the time. Looking forward to seeing you in the next live.